Many of you will remember Heathers, which I think was a fairly seminal film for most people my age anyway. In addition to Heathers and 40 Days and 40 Nights, several other features, our guest today, Michael Lehmann, has done 15 episodes of True Blood, 3 of American Horror Story, about 6 of Californication, 6 of Bored to Death.
Yeah.
The Comeback, West Wing, Larry Sanders, one of my all-time favorite shows, and most recently, the pilot for the new Amazon show, Betas. Clearly one of the most talented and sought-after directors in the American television industry. Please help me welcome Michael Lehmann. Just get a quick sense of who's in the audience today. How many people here are currently working on a series that's broadcast, and how many people are working in development? Actually, I'll do it as a list. How many people are here currently working in television? Nice. And how many people developing a television series? A lot of the same hands, both things. And how many people here dreaming of getting into the television industry? All right, we have a pretty experienced crowd here. We'll try and cover most of the bases. I'm going to, in a moment here, show a quick series of clips showing the broad range of Michael's work. But first, if you can give us maybe just the 20 words or less précis of how you got here.
How I got here?
The 20 words or less.
So I started as a feature director years ago. That's all that was really being done in those days that was really interesting creatively. And then early on, I think Larry Sanders' show was the second thing I ever did in television. It was totally fun. So throughout the 90s, I would occasionally do television episodes of good shows just to keep myself active, because features take so long to develop, and you end up working for 2 years and shooting for 50 days during that time, whereas in television you go in, you shoot it, and you get out. And I kept that up off and on, and about 6 or 7 years ago, I had made a very low budget feature that, and I'd run out of money, and I was looking for something to do, and I jumped onto The Comeback, which was an HBO series. It was really one of the first shows of this kind of recent wave of television resurgence, and I had such a great time on it. I said to my agents, I said, this is more fun than any of the movies that are out there right now. I'm going to keep doing these things until I get time to develop another movie that I care about. And now here it is 7 or 8 years later, however many years later, and I have not taken time off to develop, because there is so much good work being done in the television world, in addition to a lot of bad work being done. But there's a pocket of television in which very high quality work is being done. And for me as a director, I get to do the things that I enjoy the most without all the headaches that you have when you develop your own movie or when you create and run your own show. So that's what got me here, and that's why I have so much television work to show for during the past 5 or 6 years.
It's fun.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to play this clip here. Let's hope this works. I think I'll have to use press the space bar. I allowed enough black for the lights to come down.
Tate, what are you doing here? Shouldn't you be in school?
I'm going right after.
After what?
Where's the screenplay?
I didn't get it. I forgot. I'm sorry. The session was too much.
What the hell happened in there?
He gutted me like a fish. He said I was so cut off from my feelings that everyone in my life would die without knowing that I ever really loved them.
Oh, God, that's terrible. I'm sorry.
I want to go home.
Okay.
I want a beer.
Right.
I want an ice cream sandwich. I want to take a nap. And then I'm going to take a... Yeah! I want to...
What the fuck, Stu?
What?
You're not even remotely hard.
Getting there.
Not really.
Don't stare.
You're always hard.
Well, I had a few cocktails.
So fucking what? I could tie you off and shoot you up with heroin. You'd still have a muscly baby's arm between your legs.
Ah, Jesus. Fuck.
What, Mark? That was good.
No, it wasn't. Could you come over here and just take this?
Sorry.
Could you get the cameras out of here?
Why are you so upset, Mark?
See, I don't want them filming this.
We have a camera in the bedroom, but this is where you draw the line?
This is golf.
Okay.
Hey, but wait, I want one more shot. So just go over there, turn your phone off, and don't say anything.
Okay. I was gonna take another shot. Is everything okay? Oh, yeah.
Your brother's in a better place. He suffered with every breath that he took.
He only suffered because of you.
You know, Tate, unlike your siblings, you were graced with so many gifts. How is it that you can't bring yourself to use them? Just a smile or a kind word could open the gates to heaven.
No matter how much you want it, I will never be your perfect son.
I do have my computer here if we want to
Oh, do we? Okay.
strip that thing out.
So I think I chose clips, ones I could find and download, but I realized I was choosing clips because even though there's a broad range of shows there, there's something that's really consistent in all of your work, which is clearly you leave the space for actors. I don't know for certain, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's the episode in the scene that won Jessica Lange her Emmy in the first
Oh, I know.
season.
She did a lot of good work.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And you have a really amazing ability to regardless of the genre of the scene, or even the stakes of the scene, to really keep the dramatic tension alive. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about how you approach any show,
Yeah.
whether it's comedy or...
Well, it's interesting. You directing television, you come in on a show, unless you're doing the pilot, you're coming in on a show that already exists, and they have chosen sets, they've cast principal actors, they've set the storylines. So you're not writing the piece, you're not coming in and telling everybody what the whole project is about, because they know that sometimes better than you do. And to some degree, you're micromanaging the actual nuts and bolts of production in a creative sense. So as Scott said, I'm very actor friendly, and I work usually from the actors out. A lot of television directors come in and look at it as their job to take the script that's been given to them and simply shoot it. You know, shoot the coverage that's needed for the producers to eventually cut it together into the show, to provide the kind of shots that are needed to give the show the look that it requires, and they consider that their job. And I'm not a shot guy. I don't really care a lot about conceiving of and executing complicated or interesting shots for their own sake. And I think this is something, as a director, a lot of directors work from the shot first, and I think when I was younger I did. I always enjoyed that. You know, you think, oh, there's a really cool way to set up the scene, and the camera's going to be here, and it's going to go there, and to me, the more I work, the more I find that the challenge of good directing, and especially in television where you don't have control over all the elements coming in, is to find a way for the actors to do their work, and to do their work as well as they can, to do it better than they might otherwise, and have the blocking of the scene and the positioning of the camera and the way the scene is shot follow what the actors do, And then the challenge is, how do you still make that look really good? You know, how do you make it cinematic? How do you take that starting point and turn it into good cinema? So that's usually what I work on. I will look at scenes and figure out, before I do anything else, what do the characters want? What will the actors be asking me as a director? What do the actors have to think about when they come in to do this scene? Where does it fit into the overall of the episode? Where does the episode fit into the overall of the season, if the people who are running the show are able and willing to tell me that? And then going from there, I try to figure out, given the spaces that we have to work in, you know, how to block the scene, where to put the actors, where to put the camera, how to design the way it's shot so that A, I can meet the ridiculous schedules that we have in television, and B, so that the actors can do their work right, and C, so that it looks, you know, as good as or better than any other version of this television show.
Would you say you think like as if you were the first actor?
Kind of. I mean, a lot of it depends on how well the scenes are written. If the writers have the actors' intention in mind when they write, then it makes everything much easier. And if the writers have story in mind rather than what the actors have to do, then it makes things more complicated. So it really does depend on the show. And when you're doing comedy, usually humor is paramount, and you have to service that first, and you have to understand that the people who are writing it are thinking humor first, and the people who are watching it are demanding that they you know, somehow be allowed to laugh when they watch this thing. So I guess it depends is the answer.
So when you get basically the first step, you get the script, it's your first reading of the script. What do you find yourself scribbling down first off?
I read the script as if I'm watching the show. And presumably if I've taken the job or if I'm involved at all, I've seen other shows that they've done, or I've talked to the producers if they haven't done any yet. Sometimes you're hired before they've made any episodes. You've maybe seen the pilot. So I try to visualize the style of the show with, you know, while reading the script. And I don't make notes about anything, and I just kind of live with it. And then I start looking at, then it's all simultaneous, you know, production stuff on the one hand, because you're finding locations for the things that haven't been established before, and you're casting day player parts and guest stars, and you're learning the mechanics of that particular production. I'll be doing that, and meanwhile, with the scenes themselves, when I go and look at a location and I have the scene, I think about, you know, where did the actors come from, what do they want in the scene, where are they, what's their emotional state, what kind of things will they be thinking about to get them through, and that guides me in how I choose to block the scene. And sometimes it's obvious if television writers are writing for sets that are pre-existing, that they've shot on all the time. They'll say they're sitting in the kitchen and they go to the cabinet, and half the time, that's fine. It makes sense, the logic. But sometimes they write things amazing that they're on the show, and they write things that can't possibly be done on the sets.
My favorite example of that is 3 couples meet in a hallway.
Yeah.
I had to stage that once.
Yeah. Or you realize they've described a scene which would require all actors to have their noses pointed in a corner. And the wall's not removable.
Yes.
So,
how often, when you're location scouting, how often does the location determine the blocking versus you taking a blocking idea and then have to find a location for it?
It kind of depends on the specifics of the scene, because if the way the scene is written, you feel you need to have it block out a certain way, you know, someone emerges from somewhere, or they, you know, that sort of thing, then you find locations that will work for the way it's written. If it's flexible and you're looking more to find a great location, you say, oh, this is a great location. We can take the scene that was written to play like this, and rather than have the person enter, we'll have them already here. We'll have them come out of there, or we'll change everything around. And usually if you're making big changes like that, in television you are responsible to the producers, and I'll probably tell them, I'm planning on changing the way you've written the scene to fit this location. Are you cool with that?
What do you think? Yeah.
Yeah.
The American Horror Story ending from Smoldering Children, where Evan Peters comes in with the gas can.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the geography of that location determined how that scene. There's 3 walls to wipe through, even the track into a glass office, but not with a door in the front. A door on the sides, you could reveal Dennis O'Hare, but I think that's a very location-specific scene that kind of made the blocking of the scene in a way.
But here, this is interesting. It's one of the reasons why I asked you to show that clip. This was the first episode of American Horror Story that I'd done. So the show was new. It hadn't, I think it had just started to air. They'd made a few, I think it was number 10, so they'd already aired a few. And I showed up for prep, and there was no script. No script at all. I said, well, is there an outline? They said, nah, there's not really an outline we can show you yet, but we can tell you that in an early scene, Evan Peters is going to light Dennis O'Hare on fire. So, okay. What else can you tell me about the scene? I said, well, we think it'll take place in his office, and we're pretty sure he'll come into the office and he'll douse Dennis with gasoline and light him on fire. I said, okay, is this a new location? No, we haven't chosen a location. Okay, and this was Los Angeles, it was period, I think it was.
94?
Yeah, something like that. So we went, all right, well, where can we go? And on my first day of prep, they said, we're gonna go scout locations in downtown LA that we think will work for the scene that hasn't yet been written where this guy sets somebody on fire. And we looked at an old bank building. It was really cool, and marble and all that, it was abandoned, and I said, okay, great, this is how it's gonna work. And I blocked out the whole scene and how it could play. Never having read pages, just being told pretty much what you've just heard. So they said, good, let's put a pin in that, let's go back and prep other stuff, and I spent 2 or 3 or 4 days prepping off of descriptions of scenes that hadn't been written yet that way. So finally, we got pages, I think on the Friday before the Monday that the show started shooting.
Oh my God.
And in fact, the scene that was described where he lights the guy on fire was pretty much the way it was described. But in the meantime, we'd heard, well, we're not allowed to set a fire in this building.
Yeah.
And it doesn't fit our production schedule to be there because we can't combine it with any other location. So we have to go out and look at other places. So we looked at other places. Now I had a script, and found after a day of location scouting that there was no place that we could go and do it the way it was written. So they said, all right, we can build the set on stage. So that set was conceived and designed and built during the time that I was shooting the episode. And on the last day of shooting, I came to the stage and saw the set for the first time and shot it.
Did it help to be ruminating on the blocking of the scene, in some ways being ahead of the writers, in the sense that you could then articulate that you wanted a glass office that you could reveal them, but not with a door in the way?
No, because I had 9 days to shoot an episode on which I had no script. So every single day, I was tearing my hair out, going, how in the world are we going to figure this out? It was actually, in retrospect, a fun challenge, because you're being asked to do the work that on a film or on a more properly managed television show would take a lot of prep time and take a lot of thought, and you're being asked to essentially improvise it. And that's, you know, I mean, you can do it, and you can do it really well sometimes. And in this case, it was interesting. I did see the set the night before at the end of shooting, and it was still under construction, and I made them move some huge element of it from one side to the other, because I said, I can't track down, you know, you want the stuff that we're tracking through to be closer to camera rather than farther away, and I conceived the thing in my head to go left to right rather than right to left, that sort of thing. And I said, what does it take to do this? This is fine, all we have to do is move that wall, and they did. So that when I got there the next morning, I didn't have to reorient myself completely in terms of what I must have had in mind based on the discussions about what the set would be.
I would describe television directing as, in some ways, like being the first actor, but that you get to put on different costumes. Like every show has a quite different costume, and it's a broad range of costumes. So something like American Horror Story, however chaotic as it is, has got a much more visceral, sort of formal approach to it. Something like The Comeback, you know, in that classic mockumentary style, where you're actually working inside of a show within a show kind of format. Does your approach totally change from that show to a show like American Horror Story? Or?
Yeah, then that was, I've never done anything else like that before. That was, The Comeback was, we were supposed to be shooting the production of a reality show. So it wasn't exactly that we were providing the reality show footage, but sometimes we were outside of it. So you could see the cameras that were shooting the reality show, but the whole thing was meant to feel like it was the reality show at the same time. And this was in the earlier days of reality shows, so that stuff was kind of interesting and hadn't been explored that much. So my choice there was to create the event, basically make everything happen the way it was in the script, and there was very little improv on that show. It was mostly scripted. Create the event, and then talk to the camera operators about how they might shoot that event if they had no idea where it was going to be going to. So if they anticipated we'd do another take, I'd say, no, you can't anticipate. You have to follow. The camera can't be waiting for somebody to get there. The camera has to be slightly behind people. And the A camera operator was a terrific documentary cameraman, and he completely got that. So he would do this brilliant stuff where he would follow people and then realize there was something happening and go for it, and then at the right moment, just fall off and find somebody's reaction. And so it was very fluid, and that show shot sometimes very quickly. We did a 6-page scene, I remember, in about 5 hours, and that was that. And there was no reason to shoot anymore. You didn't really cover close-ups the same way you would in a regular show, and if you did, you didn't have to do it as carefully because it was supposed to look rough and raw, and it was fine if you saw the other camera. So you could cross-cover scenes where normally you would say, well, you see the other camera in the shot. And I go, great, this is where we're going to see it.
Show,
yeah, but you'd have to carefully meet out. We don't want to see the other camera too much. We'll see it, I think in the golf scene you see it once, you know, and...
Was it the two cameras that are shooting the show are also your two cameras, or was there a third, more objective camera as well? Or is
yes,
it just
the three, like that, three. Yeah. So mostly, and sometimes it's just the two cameras that would, and they pick each other up or not. But the interesting thing there was, once again, it was very actor first. Work with the actors, figure out what made sense for them, and since it was a reality show, you didn't even have to do blocking tricks of any kind. It was like, nope, do what you would really do. And then make little adjustments. You know, if you step a step here, if you turn toward the light, you're gonna, you know, look better for the shot. And that was really fun. It was like doing improv all around.
Yeah, I guess it may be scripted, but you're still pursuing a kind of spontaneity that could be killed by a certain kind of blocking, or the surprises are what you're after in a way.
But it was interesting how scripted the show was, because people would say to me when the show was airing, they go, that must be fun doing all that improv with the actors. I said, no, the actors are doing what's scripted. I'm improvising how I shoot it, because you're not, you know, you have to have a plan on how you're going to shoot it, but you don't want the plan to be too, you know, it has to be loose, because that's the whole point of the show.
The better you are, the more the writers hate you, because everybody thinks it's improvised.
Yeah, well, that's fine then.
Talk about how you created an environment for actors to, I mean, Jessica Lange is Jessica Lange.
Yeah.
But to do that, you still need help from you, both in your shot selection and just in the environment you create, all that kind of stuff. How do you think you contribute to a performance like that? And Evan Peters, for that matter, he's going to sit opposite her.
When you work with people like Jessica Lange, your job is to not get in their way. It's absolutely, you know, you're not going to tell her anything new about how she acts. You can't. Then it would be stupid to try. So, and experienced actors, when you're stepping on the set as a director, they will look you in the eye and they will assess you, and you can see it happening. You know that they're going, who is this person? What are they gonna bring to me? How are they gonna get in my way? I think a lot of the time they're just looking for, you know. So I like to make it clear to them that, you know, hey, I love your work. I'm happy to be working with you. Let's, you know, I'm here to service you. I don't usually say that, but it's pretty, you know, make it clear that I'm not going to start dictating to them what they should do. Sam Raimi always told a very funny story about, he was doing The Quick and the Dead, I think, and he had a big shot planned with Gene Hackman getting up and talking to a bunch of people, and he was really excited. He loved Gene Hackman, and it was his first day with Gene Hackman, and he just had everything mapped out perfectly because he wanted that scene to go so well. And Gene Hackman comes to the set, and Sam says, oh, you know, I'm a big fan. I love your work in this and that, and, you know, I'm so happy to be working with you. And so here's what I want you to do. And he laid it out, and he said, Hackman just looked at him and said, oh, so you're that kind of director. He goes, what do you mean? You're that kind of director. I don't understand what you mean. You're the one who's going to tell me where to go and what to do. And Gene Hackman was, you know, tore him apart. And all he wanted him to do was, like, get up in front of some people and talk. But the idea that this person who'd never worked with him before would tell him where he's supposed to stand or something like that was offensive to him. And really, you know, I have a lot of sympathy for Sam because he probably had some great shot set up, and you know, how do you get the actor to be your partner in that great shot? So anyway, not to digress on all this, when you have experienced actors, let them do what they do and give them parameters to work in and see what they bring to the scene before you make big decisions about how you're going to shoot it. And because no performer who's really good wants to feel that they're working in the service of a camera position.
Yeah.
You know, there are actors who are, especially actors who've done a lot of television, who are very flexible and fine about it. But they'll tell you right up front, tell me where to go, tell me where you want, tell me what my marks are, I'll do it for you.
So how do you, in your prep, in terms of deciding how you're going to stage a scene and you know, having some kind of a plan coming in, how do you at the same time leave room for spontaneity and that kind of, I got to see it here in front of me on the floor?
I like to arm myself with a lot of decisions about where the best places to shoot are in a room or a space. So, you know, I'll look where the windows are, I'll look where the most space is to put a camera and where the most dynamic framing is likely to come, and I'll try to gently ease the scene into the places where I know I can get, you know, great blocking and great shots. But I'll also arrange props and furniture in such a way so that the actors are most likely to go where I want them to. The big thing is, and this is, I think, true, weirdly, directing is, the job is all about making other people other people make the same choices that you want them to. Because everybody has to own their decisions. Nobody likes to be told what to do, ever, in life. Everybody likes to feel like they're making a choice. So when you're the director, it doesn't mean you're the puppet master. It means you're setting up a situation for people to make choices that you know will combine together to make for a good film. And it's very tricky. It's a chess game of thinking ahead of what the consequences are of those choices, and trying to figure out when letting somebody make a choice that will be destructive to all the other choices is problematic, so that you can say to them, you know what, why don't you choose something else? And not to say, no, don't choose that. You say, why don't you choose this? Because nobody likes to be told no either.
No. It's always funny because it's such an amorphous job in a weird sort of way, and at the same time, it's right there in the name. It's director, not dictator.
Right.
And there's this misnomer that a lot of people, you know, you hear back of, you know, when you work in television, and they go, oh yeah, you can't talk to the actors. You know, actors know their characters better than anybody, which is a complete wash, because I've rarely talked to an actor about their character. My job is to stage the scene so the scene is good.
Yeah.
So you still, even when you have an experienced actor, it's still, I would think, our job to make the scene as best as it can be and be their eyes for them. And I guess that's a matter of personality in terms of whether you got a Gene Hackman or...
Yeah, they do want to be directed. You know, Jessica Lange, she took direction. She took it really well. But you have to let her do her thing first. And then, you know, a couple takes in, she tends to be very, especially in that show, you know, there's a lot of weight to her performance, and there are endless pauses, and there's a lot of stuff, and there are a lot of gestures, and she's giving you a million things, and you're looking at this going, a million things won't work in this scene, but there are 4 of them that are really brilliant. So you're either looking at it saying, how do I want to leave her alone so she does all that stuff, how do I make sure I can cut the scene so that just the 4 things I love are there and the rest goes away? And if you can't, you just say, it's getting mired down here in a little bit of this. Can you pick up the pace there? Can we find a way to, you know, to move this way? It's gentle kind of direction like that, which she'll very happily take. And blocking adjustments she'll very happily take. But if it's a question of, I'm not sure that you've approached the scene the way it should be, that's tricky. But it happened on this show. And in one case, she came to me, and she was doing a scene with Lily Rabe and in the second season, and the scene didn't make any sense. I mean, this show, by the way, the scripts were always showing up at the last minute, and half the time you'd read them and go, I have no idea what this is supposed to be. And if you'd ask the writers, where is this going? They'd say, we don't know yet. Ryan Murphy hasn't told us where it's going. So it really puts you in an odd position. And we had one scene where I rehearsed it and I said it, and the actors said, we don't like this. We don't think this is what the scene should be. And at that point I said, I can't help you on this. We got to get a writer to the set, because this is what's on the page. This will work for what's on the page. And a writer came to the set and rewrote big parts of the scene. And they were never really, nobody was ever happy with that scene. Like I couldn't really crack that nut.
But it was a script problem. It wasn't an interpretation problem. It turned out to be a script problem.
I think so, but I mean, seriously, I mean, maybe there was something I wasn't thinking of that would have made it work. But I couldn't think of it, and that's not typical, but on that show, it's not unusual.
We were talking earlier about, in television you're working with and for writers, which is a very special and unique kind of collaboration that doesn't really exist anywhere else in the motion picture world.
Television is traditionally a writer's medium, and it's a, if you guys know, generally in features, writers are not treated well. They're not even on the set half the time, and I used to go in, I remember I read a script I loved, and I took a meeting with the studio, and they said, we're really happy you're interested in directing this. We'll get you any writer you want to rewrite it. And I said, well, why would I want anybody to rewrite it? I'm sitting here because I like the script. And they said, well, but we know you must have your favorite writers to come in and do. I said, no, I don't. I want to make this script. And we'll make it better, but I figure the guy who wrote the script or the woman who wrote the script can take it to the next step. So it's not even, in features, writers are disposable. In television, the world is run by writers, and directors are disposable. And you direct your material, and you leave it in the hands of writers afterwards to recut it to their liking, which means usually to chop it into close-ups of people saying their lines exactly the way they had it in mind when they wrote it. And I'm not kidding. And you go, well, this is what am I here for? And there's a constant battle between directors in television and writers, in which the directors are saying, why don't you use that nice wide shot I did, or why don't you play it here in the over and not in the close-up, and why don't you allow the camera to move from here to there rather than just chop into a close-up. And it's ongoing. I mean, it's ongoing in all the shows. It's very frustrating to shoot with a specific plan in mind, which I do, and then cut it for the producers, and then walk away and come back and see that they've taken things that you thought were subtle and interesting and just turn them into television.
So when does that relationship work best in your experience? Have you found a way to? Is it a relationship thing? Is it just you do 15 episodes of a show, and by that time you and the writers have some kind of symbiosis going? They get what you do and you get what they do, or what's the trick?
It depends on. Sometimes the writers are much better than the way I've described them, and they're actually looking for these things. True Blood, which is a pretty director-friendly show. I'll direct the show, and the writer of the episode will be on the set with me, but usually we're just having fun talking. We're not usually at each other or discussing the fine points of what should be done. And in the cutting room, I think it was in the season 2 of True Blood, I delivered an episode that I thought was really good. I was very happy with it. And I looked at the producer's cut that they did after I was finished, and they had put a lot of things in close-up that I didn't want in close-up. And I said to Alan Ball, I said, I'm not really happy with this, because you played so much in close-up, and I think we had really good stuff in the wide shots. And he looked at me, I could tell he was pissed off that I was even saying this to him. And we get along great, and he said, well, go in the cutting room and take a look and see if you want to change anything back. Do that. And so I said, oh, wow, that's great. Nobody's ever told me that on a television show. And I went in the cutting room and I looked at each individual cut, and I realized 60% of them were choices that were good, really good. I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. The performance is better in that close-up, and there's no reason not to go there. So that was a humbling experience for me, because I realized that a lot of what I was reacting to was just my work being changed after I left it behind. And that it's not that the choices weren't good. The choices were, taste-wise, they leaned more in the direction of what the writers like than what I like as a filmmaker. But I couldn't really argue with most of them, and I changed one shot and said, it's good. And it was a good episode, and I decided never to do that again. But on the show I'm doing now, where I'm an executive producer as well as a director, I've argued bitterly with the other producers after I delivered a director's cut, and the other producers went in without me in the cutting room and started switching things out for close-ups. And I said, you can't do this. This is not how it's designed to be cut. And so, we're all producers together, so they said, okay, fine, and we put it back. And then we sent it to the network, and they said, do you have a close-up for that line? So you can't win. I mean, the only way you can win is by not shooting the close-ups when you don't want them to be cut.
You'll never work again.
And then you're not really helping anybody.
So you get a short period of time in which to do your cut in post. You got a lot of things to choose from in terms of what's important to present. What do you try and present?
I try to maintain performance for one thing, because I think, weirdly, I like to make it easy on the producers who are going to come in afterwards. I feel like my job is best done if they get a cut and go, oh, we don't have to spend a lot of time working on this. And that way it protects my work and saves them time, and everybody's happy. And if you deliver a cut that they go, oh, shit, there are all these problems, then nobody's happy. But if those are script problems that can only be solved by rearranging material or removing lines, for the most part, as a director in television, you don't do that when you deliver your director's cut. You deliver them a cut that reflects all the material that was in the script, because as a writer's medium, they're never going to accept that somebody as insignificant as a director could actually cut a line from their show.
Yeah, that's a tricky one, I find, because they're also not. If you're the only one who can articulate them or show it to them without the line, because they're probably not going to do it themselves. And sometimes it's a really, really good thing to do is to cut those 3 lines, and the scene, is its perfect length suddenly and works. But it's tough to do, I think, unless you have a long-term relationship with the showrunner.
Sometimes I will cut the scene shorter and tell the editor to hold it aside, and that when the producers are in there, just say, we have a shorter version, and show it to them then. And I'll ask the editors, did they ever look at the shorter version? And maybe 50% of the time they'll say yes. But on really good, these days, television, there's very high-quality television being made by writer-producers who are absolutely filmmakers. They make good choices, and I'm really happy when I deliver a cut to them, because I know that what they do is going to be probably either what I would do if I had more time in the cutting room and had final authority, or better. And sometimes it is better. And so, that's why in the shooting, you also, the question sometimes comes up, how much do you want to cover a scene? And if you're making an independent film and it's your movie and you're the one who's going to have final cut and you have a terrible schedule and no money, you can decide, I'm going to shoot this scene in 2 shots, or I'm going to shoot it in 1 shot, and that's it. And I'm going to live with all the consequences of that. But it's your choice, and you'll live with it, and your name is on it. If you're making a television show and you're leaving your work behind for 6 producers and a network and God knows who else to work with, they may not like that you made that choice. So you have to cover it more. But at the same time, you have a terrible production schedule to meet, and they don't want you to overcover it, too. So you're getting pulled in a lot of different directions. And the choices become sometimes, I like to choose based on, this is what I would like to have if I went into the cutting room, based on my experience making movies, I'd like to have these shots. So if it's more than what they want, I will say, no, you'll like these. You'll like being able to cut to that angle, because it's going to open up your world or something like that. And sometimes, if they're more writer-oriented, they might not realize that, and they might not care. And at the end of the day, they still might not care. And they may not ask you back to direct their show. And I go, that's fine. I don't have to do it.
Let's talk about True Blood. We've got an amazing sequence from near the end of season 5. It's kind of catfight extraordinaire, I would call it.
So, I have the storyboards for that. Should I try to strip them off my computer?
Yeah, I can play the clip and you can strip them off?
Yeah.
And we'll do that.
Let me see if I can do that while you can multitask.
We've got my USB there.
Okay. It'll take me a minute.
Oh, that's interesting.
Are you?
Four minutes of black, maybe a little bit too much.
Morning. Beautiful day, isn't it?
Governor Burrell!
The governor's not here. Anything I can help you with?
Sarah Newland?
Don't tell me you're a fan.
Where's the governor?
Like the press release said, in the wake of an unprecedented attack on the governor's mansion, he has been moved to an undisclosed location.
And is this the undisclosed location?
No, it's not.
Then what the hell is this place?
This is for government employees only.
And you're a government employee, Miss Newland?
What I am is a businesswoman. As are you. Okay? The both of us are strong women trying to forge our way ahead in a male-dominated industry, and that means we have to support each other and not bicker like sorority girls.
What is this?
You shouldn't have done that.
Are you adulterating my product?
I could tell you, but then I'd have to kill you.
You're fucking crazy.
I'm getting there. What are you doing?
We answer to the FDA. I have to inform Osaka.
What the fuck? Help! Somebody help me! Help! Don't you dare run away from me! Suck it Thank you, Jesus.
It's a TV storyboard.
Great.
Yeah, and I'm sorry about all the violent stuff.
So where do you start on? I mean, it's hard in the scheduled television to shoot anything that doesn't continue into coverage. That's a feature-like sequence.
Yeah.
With
well,
effects and everything else.
For one thing, I show up on the first day of shooting and I read a script and this scene is in it. You know, I don't choose to come in and shoot a scene where a woman stabs another woman to death with her high heel. So you also have to understand that that's part of the job, is that you are a hired gun to come in and shoot what the show requires. So it does. You know, I had certain issues with the writing in this scene, all sorts of issues with a lot of things in it, and I've been on the show off and on for years, so I know everybody, and it's fine, but to a certain degree, I want to point out that your job is to create that scene the way they conceived it, more or less. So I look at something like this and say, well, where is the humor in this scene? You know, because that's the only way to make it play, and then that show has a lot of dark humor, and that's fine. So for the technical part of shooting, you know, this scene had some standard stuff, you know, just running around of the kind that you do in any kind of action chase scene, and that's pretty easy. That you walk through the locations and figure out where you're going to shoot the stuff, and you figure out where your camera angles are, and even that isn't so actor-friendly. The actor's just going to be running from spot A to spot B. And when you shoot it, then you want to get the tone of performance when it's this sort of hysterical stuff, have it be the right way to maintain the humor, I guess. And so the set had already been built where this was going to take place, but it hadn't been designed for this kind of a sequence. So it required all sorts of careful mapping out to figure out where we could and couldn't shoot through the grates and use the sets as they were and find places for the camera. So I got a storyboard artist who does the show, and first of all gave him a list of shots that outlined where I thought we should, what the shots should be based on a reading of the script, and a walkthrough of the locations. And then I showed him photographs of the locations, and we talked it through, and then I took him to this was a standing set on the lot, and took him there and walked him to where I thought the best camera angles would be so he could see what they were to draw them up. And at the same time, we had a meeting with the various people who were involved in the effects aspect of the scene to just literally walk them through the sequence. And so what made it more complicated than it appears is that we have things like we have a vampire on a wire rig flying up to lick the blood off the grate. So that requires stunt rigging and wire effects and that sort of thing, and you have to plan those out, and you have to know where you're going to shoot from and where the pick points are for the wires and all that sort of thing. And then we had blood effects, which are pretty easy, but they're complicated in that you don't want to do them and clean them up too many times. Yeah, so the sequence of shooting becomes very important. And we had a live cast of Miss Suzuki, who's the one who gets killed. We cast her face and made a very lifelike rubber puppet of her.
Oh, is that what falls down on the grate?
That's what, you can't take a real person and smash their
No,
face,
but even the falling down on the, even the falling to her knees face first onto the grate.
That was a stunt woman.
Yeah.
But you know, you learn things along the way. Like we looked at the grating, which had been designed before this sequence was ever conceived, and talked to the stuntman and said, well, what can we do here? Can anybody, how much can a stunt person be pushed against the grate? He said, not at all, because it's sharp metal. So then one of the effects guys goes, well, in the back of my truck, I got this surfacing that's lining my truck bed, and maybe you could cast that to put on the grate so that it wouldn't be metal. And I said, okay, well, let's look into that. And then somebody else said we could cut foam around it, but you're going to see the foam. And you know, so it became a long series of discussions over something as simple as how do you get somebody to get their face smashed into a grate.
Morning. Beautiful day, isn't it?
Governor Burrell!
The governor's not here. Anything I can help you with?
Sarah Newland?
Don't tell me you're a fan.
Where's the governor?
Like the press release said, in the wake of an unprecedented attack on the governor's mansion, he has been moved to an undisclosed location.
And is this the undisclosed location?
No, it's not.
Then what the hell?
Are strong women trying to forge our way ahead in a male-dominated industry, and that means we have to support each other and not bicker like sorority girls.
What is this?
You shouldn't have done that.
Are you adulterating my product?
I could tell you, but then I'd have to kill you.
You're fucking crazy.
I'm getting there. What are you doing?
We answer to the FDA. I have to inform Osaka.
What the fuck?
Stop getting it off!
Thank you, Jesus.
Where they are going to be most comfortable. And that can be complicated because it can mean with a super experienced actor, just stay out of their way, but it can also mean with some people, they want to be told exactly what to do, and they won't be happy unless you tell them what to do. And then you get others who won't be happy unless they're unhappy with what you're telling them. You know, and this is very real. Like they give their best performance when they hate you for telling them what to do. So you can't just back off and say, sure, do what you think is right. Then they hate you, but they hate you in the wrong way. They need to hate you for being bad father, you know, whatever it is. So you try to figure this out when you meet an actor or on the fly, because in television you don't have time to rehearse anything. You have a table read the week before shooting where as many actors as are available and willing to come in will sit around a table and read through the script. And that's probably as close to a real rehearsal that you're going to get. And so my procedure on the set is very simple. When everybody gets there, I gather them around. I say, let's just do the words first. And some actors hate that, and they're going, why are we just reading the words? And I do it because I want everybody to hear all the words spoken. And, you know, and it's just easier. Then everybody knows what the scene is. And they get a chance to loosen up their mouths and get into it. So they read the words, and then we put it on its feet and start playing around. And like I said, I don't tell people, you go here, you go here. Sometimes I'll give them starting points. You know, once you start over here, once you start over there, you go there, and let's see where it goes. And most, if you set it up right and the scene is well written, 85% of the time they'll go exactly where you want them to go, and you don't have to worry about it. So, but you know, nuances of performance, you're more likely going to work on that as you shoot than you will during rehearsal.
I'd like to ask a little bit of a two-parter about tension and about tone. I noticed that whatever you shoot, it has tension, which is wonderful. But say, let's compare Californication, which is sultry, and True Blood, which is bizarre and extreme, and then what's the Jason Schwartzman one?
Bored to Death, yeah.
Bored to Death, which is funny. So how do you maintain tension in each of those type of tones, and is the tone, and how do you express the tone?
Well, conflict drives everything, right? I mean, in Western drama and comedy, it's conflict. It's all conflict. You're going to see people, if people sit around and agree, you don't have a scene, right? So it's all conflict. And for me, it's all comedy, because I just think everything is funny. And also, basically, irony drives it all, whether it's horror or, you know, whatever's going on. Usually irony is the order of the day. And so on some level, that's either funny or tragic or engaging, but it comes out of conflict and things not being what they appear to be. Does that make sense? You know, so that's at the heart of most good writing, you can find that. And if you find that, and it's well written, then all you have to do is let the characters be who they are in that scene, and it'll all come out. and you just need to figure out where the eye wants to be at any given moment. I'm not one for making the camera be intrusive, because I feel like it pulls you out of all those things. But if the camera can be pulling you in by some interesting shot or an angle that's engaging, that'll do it for you. I have crazy theories that drive me when I shoot, which are like, I think low angles are much more powerful because they recreate the view that we have of the world as a child. And all our most powerful emotional experiences that have meant the most to us happened during our early years. And in our early years, we were looking at people's kneecaps and the bottoms of their chins, for the most part. So I'm convinced that when you put the camera low, you're recreating more of a primal experience.
I'm going to use it the next time I try and shoot a woman over 50 from.
Well, no, that doesn't work. That does not work.
But it's from a child's perspective.
But when camera operators, I say, set me up a medium shot over there, and the camera's up here.
Yeah.
They go, why is the camera up there? Oh, it's more flattering. So what? That's not what we're doing here. The camera should be there because and also low angles have a lot of dynamism to them usually, because from a high angle you're looking down at the floor. But those are the kind of things, and obviously you don't want to make camera angles that are too extreme that will pull people out or make them unless you're doing American Horror Story where you can't get extreme enough, and that's just the style of the show.
Do you have any tricks for when you don't have that conflict? I mean, you're right. The most amount of time is spent solving the problem scenes, not figuring out how to shoot the good scenes. The good scenes actually help shoot themselves in a way, or you can do it on the floor. It inspires everybody's on the same page. But what happens to you when you have a scene that you can't quite get behind, or it's not clear what the conflict actually is?
You ask those stupid cliche questions about what's my motivation. What did the characters want in the scene? And if it's not clear, you find it and you go from there. That really, really does help. And if it's comedy, then comedy never works. Comedy is all about trying to figure out how to make it work. And chances are, if it's making you laugh on the set, it's not going to be funny. Comedy is all about knowing where the unexpected juxtapositions of behavior and images are going to create something that makes people have this involuntary, irrational, weird-sounding response, which is laughter. And I don't know how you do it, but you can tell when something's not working. You can tell when you're doing a comedy scene and it's like, nobody's ever going to think this is funny. So, I don't know, you look for ways to bring it out. I found working with really, really great comedy writers that their minds just go to all sorts of fun places about how to play it. I did a scene in Nurse Jackie, Linda Wallum, who created the show, who also wrote that comeback episode, she's got a great head for a certain kind of comedy. And there was a scene in Nurse Jackie that was funny and was good and it was playing really well. And she said to me, why don't you just have him do it like super silly? I said, no, that'd be terrible, but I'll try it. And I figured out what she meant by that, and we did it, and the scene transformed and was great. So, by not playing something as not taking things as seriously as they seem to be on the page, then the scene not only got funnier, but also actually gained more meaning.
But maybe not your first choice, but the second choice might be more interesting in the end.
Yeah.
Next year, where the microphone is. Oh, the microphone's there. You have another question? At the back there.
Yeah, I hadn't seen this particular season where this episode was, but the blonde lady, I think it was season 2 about the cult, right? Is that right?
Yeah.
She played that. She was far more melodramatic and over the top in her performance here than in that season. And I think, you directed part. So what happened? I mean, it's like, it's a day and night in terms of the quality of her performance there,
Well, the writers on the show love her. Her name is Anna Kemp. She's a terrific actress. She's really, really good. And she did all this great stuff in the season 2, and they decided to bring her back. And they brought her back in a very amped up form for this last season. And
So
you know,
they dictated that for you then, right? Is it the amped up form? That was their choice?
well, it's hard to shoot a scene where somebody is chasing down a stranger and killing her with a high heel and have her make her performance more subtle. It just is hard. I'm serious. I mean, it's just, what are you going to do?
I understand, yeah.
You can't, so, right, the scene where the two of them confront each other for the first time was very problematic for me, because I didn't, not a question of, well, I didn't understand why the two of them were doing what they were doing. And I asked the writers a lot of questions about it. But it came at a point in the season when they were having all sorts of other issues trying to balance a bunch of stuff, and they basically said, this is how we want it to be. And I got a couple of changes in the script, and then I worked with the actors. I guarantee you this version tracks better than what we had at the start of that shoot day. But yeah, compared to the stuff that she was doing in season 2, which was all about her religious faith and her relationship with her husband and things like that, that there was much less to work with in that way.
I got you.
So, but you're right, you have to take what's given to you and figure out a way to make it work. And they've got more stuff for this character that'll probably be pretty great down the line in the final season. So, you know, but that's all, this is what the scene was.
Down here in the front.
Oh, hey. Hi, Heather. Hey, we know each other. I'll go first then. Early on, you talked about leaving space for actors, and you said that you noticed that he leaves space for actors. Can you talk a little bit more about that and what the choices are and what the angles are and how that happens?
Well, I think it's a mistake to come to an actor and say, this is how I'm going to shoot it, and so I want you to do this. Because that's sending a message to them that what they do is not as important as what the cameraman is doing or what the director who thinks in terms of shots is doing. So when I say I like to give them space, is that I like to let the actors do their work, their acting work, without regard for you know, where they have to stand in relation to the camera or any of that sort of thing. So forget about the crew around them, forget about the set, and just play the scene. And that usually is a much better starting point. And once the parameters have been set and once performance has been established, then if you need to make adjustments to say, you know, like you take a step to your side here, or don't move on that line, move on this line, I'll say, can you do that? Not, I want you to, but what would happen if? There's a lot of that sort of, you know, why don't you try this, or what would happen if you did that, based on what their initial choices are. And so, you know, like I said, let them own their choices. The worst thing you can do, I think the worst thing you can do to an actor is try to make their choices for them. Nobody wants that, because then they don't own their performance. And if they don't own their performance, not only is the performance lacking, but also they'll have trouble hitting their marks and remembering their lines, because they're worried about, oh, I'm supposed to stand over here and hit that spot on this line because that's where the camera's going to be. It's much easier to tell a cameraman, make sure you get to that spot in time, than it is to tell an actor, I want you to base your whole performance on landing on that spot at that place.
Does that tend to make your blockings a little bit longer? I mean, if you're working in a 7-day hour, per se, how do you expedite going from, I have a plan that they'll probably fall into here, but I'm going to start with kind of an open book, but I got about 10 minutes to get this to tape marks and back to the makeup.
If you're working on a show that has a really, really tight schedule, then you hope that there are scenes where people are sitting and talking, and you know, then those questions aren't happening. Yeah. Or if it's a really complicated blocking scene with a bunch of people, then I feel like it is okay to come in and say, look, this is how we have to do it. You know, apologizing to the actors, I've got, you know, all these shots to do, we're gonna have to get this scene done, so tell me if you have any problems with this approach. You know, let's try it and see. And then at least give them room to make adjustments in it. Because yes, there are times when you have to say, this is exactly what we're going to do today, and sort of lay it out. but still you can be actor friendly with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we have time for this one here? Oh.
Okay.
These things always go way too fast. Well, thank you, Michael. It was very illuminating. Thank you all for coming and joining us.
Thank you, guys.